Hi! As we continue through Acts, isn't it amazing that no matter what, the gospel cannot be stopped? That's an important truth to remember, and Coach Nat Crawford will bring that to our attention in the next 5 episodes. Here's Nat with today's message.
Imagine a small classroom in Alabama in 1955, where a woman named Rosa Parks made a life-altering decision. After attending workshops on nonviolent resistance and equality, she quietly resolved to live out her faith in a way that would challenge injustice. A few months later, she refused to give up her bus seat in Montgomery. Her quiet act of courage wasn't just about a seat. It was about stepping into a moment that would become a catalyst for the civil rights movement. What followed was far bigger than Parks herself. Her faith-driven resolve sparked a movement that rippled across the world. This story parallels the account in Acts chapter 16, where God orchestrates a divine appointment through Paul and his companions. They set out to share the gospel, originally planning to go elsewhere, but the Holy Spirit redirected them to Macedonia. When they arrived in Philippi, a leading Roman city, they found no synagogue, only a handful of women gathered by the river for prayer. So today, let's read about this in Acts chapter 16, beginning in verse 11. So setting sail from Troas, we made a direct voyage to Samothrace, and the following day to Neapolis, and from there to Philippi, which is a leading city of the district of Macedonia and a Roman colony. We remained in this city for some days, and on the Sabbath day, we went outside the gate to the riverside, where we supposed there was a place of prayer. And we sat down and spoke to the women who had come together. One who had heard us was a woman named Lydia from the city of Thyatira, a seller of purple goods, who was a worshiper of God. The Lord opened her heart to pay attention to what was said by Paul. And after, she was baptized, and her household as well. She urged us, saying, "If you have judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come to my house and stay." And she prevailed upon us. Paul and his team didn't stumble upon Philippi by accident. Though they originally tried to go elsewhere, the Holy Spirit redirected them to Macedonia. Now in Philippi, a significant Roman city, they're on new ground, but without an established synagogue, a sign there weren't any Jews. Following custom, they head to the river looking for a prayer gathering. Instead of finding a crowd, they just find a handful of women. Paul didn't let the size of the gathering limit his obedience. He could have easily moved on, looking for a more strategic audience, but he remained faithful. This is a reminder that God often uses what we might consider insignificant moments to do something amazing. We don't have to wait for the perfect situation or the biggest audience. God can use us right where we are if we're willing to step into the opportunities he has placed before us. In this small gathering, we meet Lydia, a successful businesswoman dealing in luxury fabrics. As a worshiper of God, Lydia was a Gentile who believed in the God of Israel, but had not yet heard the gospel. Paul's obedience in simply showing up and sharing the message led him into God's bigger plan. The Lord opened her heart to pay attention to what was said by Paul. This reminds us that evangelism is a partnership with God. Paul did his part by sharing, but it was God who worked in Lydia's heart. This is a vital truth for us in outreach. Our role is obedience, not to convince anyone. Only God can open hearts. Our job is to show up, share, and trust God with the results. Lydia's life is immediately transformed. She believes, is baptized, and invites Paul and his team into her home, creating the first church in Philippi. This simple encounter by the river results in a new believer whose influence would lay the foundation for the church in Philippi. The Philippian church would later become one of the strongest in the New Testament, a reminder of what God can do with even one transformed life. Sometimes we may feel that our outreach efforts seem small or insignificant, but Lydia's story reminds us of the potential impact of one life changed by Jesus. Our obedience, even in small moments, can be the beginning of something extraordinary that God uses to reach others. So let's go into this week with a willingness to follow God in the everyday moments. Like Paul, let's be open to where God might lead us, whether it's a conversation, an invitation, or just a simple act of kindness. We don't have to know the full plan. We just need to take one obedient step, trusting that God is already preparing hearts to hear the message of Jesus. Remember, our job is to share, and God's job is to open hearts. When we show up and let God work through us, He can use our obedience to reveal Jesus to the world, one heart at a time. So let's step into our week with open eyes, ready to see where God might be leading us to make an eternal impact.